So that's cool. I would also say, though, that now that we've done that, things around the edges are a little rough for some reason. And I suspect that that is because if we follow this down to our twister, the twister, as I explained before, is saying for every voxel, do this. But the only voxels it's allowed to run over are the ones that are already populated by density, because this is a VDB. The VDB is a sparse volume that is only storing voxel data where it needs to. So in these gap areas, if possible, it doesn't store anything. They don't exist in the VDB. So if we look at this like this is kind of a rough approximation of that idea. But the issue with that is that by the time we get to something like this is trying to run only on areas where there is density already. And usually that's pretty efficient, but for a deformer kind of situation like this, that could be a problem, because maybe some density should be moving into an area where there wasn't density before. So what we need to do here is say VDB activate. And we'll do that before our twister. The VDB activate, we can say basically expand. Let me actually bring that VDB visualize tree back. As we expand, where it stores values in the VDB, you can see are expanding also. And that's what we want. We want some amount of expansion so that our deformer will be iterating over cells that maybe were empty before but should now have density in them. So if I were to put it to 0 where nothing's happening, and I look here we are. But if I expand this VDB, we can see that indeed there were voxels that were getting missed. After a certain point, we won't see any change anymore, like so. Now we're just adding more and more voxels on the outside, but none of them were ever going to get any density added to them anyway. So that was actually quite successful. You probably want to do the minimum amount, because of course this is an operation that takes time to do, but it's not too bad. I'd actually much rather have too many voxels with this than not enough. So there you go. So that's a big improvement on the edges of that. Look how much was getting missed. So now with that, save that, go back to 62 for the 100th time. And let's snapshot that one. And now you should see it looking a lot more, correct to the degree that it is correct. Again, magic, could look like anything. But this is not the kind of stuff I want to take for granted. So there we go. So now it actually just feels better anyway. This is what it was, this is what it is now. Things that were getting chopped off before now are back to existing. So this is just much more interesting in general. So going back to where we were, to this, doesn't that seem just more interesting? I think especially once we render it, you'll hopefully agree. So let's go ahead and start rendering. I may not render the full frame range because I don't want to sit here all day, but I'm going to do some of the frames. So here we go. So here's 24 frames worth anyway. I didn't feel like waiting. But you get the idea. It's way more interesting, I think. Here's what it was before. 24 frames. No, it's 23 frames, but whatever. Yeah, I mean, neither is wrong, but I think this one is just more eye-catching. We can just see, we can really feel the movement. It feels more like a simulation to me. That's pretty much it. So I think that's more successful. Let's move on to shaping this now in another way.